I ask you to have the courage to commit yourselves to the truth. Have the courage to believe the good news about life, which Jesus teaches in the gospel.
So I was born in a small little town called Havertown, Pennsylvania, which is about 20 minutes west of Philadelphia. When I was 14, we moved down to Tampa, Florida. I was there a few years later, went to Florida State. So in my sophomore year in college, I was about 20 years old. And I remember thinking to myself that life has been pretty boring so far. And I remember having a conversation with myself. I was sitting at a stoplight. And I just started asking people out loud, talking to myself, like, why did you wake up this morning? Why are you going to work? Why are you doing this? We're going to go to work, come home, eat, go to bed, and do the exact same thing tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. There had to be something more out of life, and I really wasn't finding it. And so it's kind of funny how I had this conversation how boring my life was and how uneventful things were. I used to work at a Subway sandwich shop in Tampa. And 11:10, this guy comes into the store. I hear the doorbell ring, and all of a sudden I see this guy with an automatic weapon pointing at me. And he was yelling and screaming at me, and at that point everything went into slow motion. I couldn't believe I was being held up at gunpoint. So he says, I'm going to count to 10, and if you don't open up this register, I'm going to blow you away. So that absolutely motivated me. So I stepped forward and I hit some of the buttons. I don't know what buttons I hit, but I was able to get the register open, and I was able to get the money that was in the register on the counter. He tells me to stand there and close my eyes, and it's the longest 3 to 5 seconds of my life. So I do. I close my eyes, and he's counting the money. And when I was closing my eyes, I really did experience my life flashes in front of my eyes. I've heard that when you're at a near-death experience, that in many ways it does. Your life flashes. And it wasn't like a video, but more like a mural of all the people who I loved, all the people that I needed to say thank you, all the people I needed to apologize and say I was sorry. They all just kind of came across my mind's eye. There was a real sadness because I realized that if this guy shoots me, I'm never going to have an opportunity to tell them how much I love them. Well, I hear the doorbell ring. I open my eyes and I see the thief running into the car, the getaway car, and peeling out onto the street. And there was that profound sense that this world and the next are paper thin when you're about to die. I didn't have a whole lot to show for my life, and I certainly wasn't living for God. Church really wasn't part of the ethos of my life. It wasn't a priority. And it was there that I realized people put off church because they always think they have more time than they really do. I hadn't gone to church in a while. In fact, at this point, I might have gone to church maybe 10 times a year, and I certainly hadn't gone to confession. So all those areas of my life that needed to change, definitely weighed me down. But after spending some time with the brothers and the community at Florida State, called the Catholic Student Union, I really experienced falling in love with God, meeting people who really love God. I saw people just trying to do their very best, flaws and all, sins and all. And seeing in my own life, I had a lot to work on. I decided to at least open myself up to vocation. Being held up at gunpoint makes you realize that, what are you living for? why does God have you here on earth? Am I living my life for myself, or am I living my life for others? As I prayed more about it, I realized what the Lord was doing was He was giving me the freedom that if I wanted to get married, I could get married. And that I could live a very holy life, being a married man, to live the call to holiness. But He was also giving me the gift to be a brother, a consecrated brother. And that was a way that He was able to satisfy the deepest desire in my heart, which was to live a radical life. That a man will live his whole life, and what solely satisfies his heart is Jesus. And I realized that's where the Lord was, His work was being done in my heart. It was a call freely given, but I'm His son, I'm not a slave. And so He wanted me to say yes. And that it was up to me to choose it. I had to respond.